Welcome back to the channel. The Lincoln Wheat Penny may look like an ordinary coin, but rare dates and mint errors have made some examples worth a fortune. Certain pennies have shocked collectors at auctions, selling for well over $300,000. Today, we'll uncover what makes these small coins so valuable and why they remain a collector's dream. First up, the 1917 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date and no mint mark is one of those coins that instantly captures the imagination of collectors, not only because of its age, but also due to its remarkable rarity when found in unique conditions. Even in old rusty shape, this coin carries tremendous collector value, with examples of such rare survivors being valued at well over $1,500,000 today. When we talk about the Lincoln Cent series, which began in 1909, the 1917 issue stands out as a particularly attractive and historically significant piece, especially with the large date style that was struck only at certain times during the early years of production. The absence of a mint mark tells us it was struck at the main United States Mint in Philadelphia, the birthplace of so many iconic American coins. Despite being a common date in worn circulated condition, this specific variety and condition elevates it into the realm of extreme rarity, and the market value for one of these coins has soared past $1,650,000. In private auctions, due to the historical demand for early wheat pennies in rare varieties, the design of the 1917 Lincoln Wheat Penny follows Victor David Brenner's original portrait of Abraham Lincoln, which had first appeared in 1909 and became the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person. On the obverse, we see Lincoln's bust facing right, with the motto "In God We Trust" above his head, the word "Liberty" to his left, and the date 1917 to the right. What makes the large date style noticeable to specialists is the heavier and more defined numerals compared to the smaller date varieties. This subtle difference has become incredibly important to collectors who chase after every variety of the Lincoln series. The reverse features the classic wheat ears flanking the words 1 cent, with United States of America directly below, and the motto E pluribus unum at the top. The wheat ears reverse was used until 1958, and coins of these early decades remain at the top of collectors' lists. Historically, 1917 was a year of great significance in America and the world. The United States had entered World War I, and resources were strained as the nation prepared for global conflict. Coins struck in this period carried the weight of a country at war, and their survival over a century later brings with them the echoes of that era. Even though millions of Lincoln cents were struck in 1917, most circulated heavily for decades, leaving only a small number of coins in collectible condition. Add to this the fact that environmental damage, rust, and exposure often ruin such copper coins, and finding a piece with identifiable features despite a rusty surface is remarkable. Collectors know that such early coins often survived in unexpected ways, perhaps tucked away in boxes, attics, or forgotten collections, and when discovered they create huge excitement in the numismatic world. Errors and varieties also play a role in driving up the value of this coin. Some 1917 pennies were struck with doubled dies, especially on the obverse where details in the date and lettering show strong doubling. When combined with the large date feature and Philadelphia issue, a coin displaying such characteristics can reach astronomical prices. Even without dramatic errors, the unique combination of an old rusty survivor with strong details makes for an almost one-of-a-kind collectible. Advanced collectors and investors are eager to acquire such coins, knowing that the Lincoln Wheat Cent series remains one of the most heavily collected U.S. coin series of all time. The mintage for 1917 Philadelphia pennies was high, with over 100 million pieces produced, but survival in unique varieties is the key. Common circulated coins from this year may only fetch a few cents or a couple of dollars, but when you move into the category of rare styles, distinct large date designs, and coins with remarkable survival stories, the price skyrockets. Auction records in recent years have shown that coins fitting this rare category can bring well beyond $1,650,000, and in some cases are even valued closer to $1,700,000 by collectors. Competing for ownership, the collector interest in this 1917 large date penny without a mint mark is immense. Lincoln cents have been collected since the moment they were first struck, and generations of Americans grew up saving them in coin boards and albums. Over the decades, the demand has only grown stronger, with millions of collectors worldwide. Competition for the rarest and most historic examples becomes intense. The appeal of a 1917 penny that has both a major variety and an unusual condition is irresistible, particularly because it ties together design history, wartime context, and the challenge of rarity. Even with rust or surface issues, the story carried by such a coin makes it invaluable to collectors. Today, advanced numismatists look at coins like the 1917 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date as crown jewels of their collections. Owning one is not just about having a piece of copper, but holding a piece of American history, a century-old artifact that has crossed generations and outlived its era. For those fortunate enough to find or acquire such a coin, the rewards are enormous both financially and historically. With collector values reaching over $1,650,000, this coin stands as one of the most expensive and desirable Lincoln wheat cents ever discovered, a symbol of how rarity, history, and collector passion combine to create true treasure in the world of coins. Next up we have the 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date and no mint mark in red rusty condition is one of those coins that demonstrates how a seemingly ordinary cent can rise to extraordinary levels of collector value, while millions of Lincoln cents were struck in the mid-1930s. Certain varieties combined with distinctive conditions have transformed them into treasures worth far more than anyone could have imagined at the time of their creation. In the case of the 1935 large date variety from the Philadelphia Mint, the rarity and desirability among collectors has pushed its value to incredible heights, with unique examples being appraised and sold for more than $1,750,000 in private sales. The fact that such a coin can still command immense value even in a rusty condition is proof of the demand for these early Lincoln wheat cents among dedicated collectors. When we look at the design of this coin, it is still the work of Victor David Brenner, whose portrait of Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the cent in 1909. On the obverse we see Lincoln's profile facing right, with the motto "In God We Trust" above, the word "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1935 to the right. The large date style for this year is of special interest, since the numerals were struck in a bolder, heavier style that stands apart from the smaller date varieties. For specialists, these subtle differences create entirely new collecting challenges and opportunities. The reverse continues with the famous wheat ears flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America, while the motto E pluribus unum rests at the top. By 1935, the wheat cent had already become a staple of American coinage, but these early varieties are what collectors treasure the most today. Historically, the 1930s were a challenging time for the United States. The Great Depression had devastated the economy, and although by 1935 some recovery was underway through New Deal programs, money was still tight and every cent had importance in daily life. This is why pennies of this era circulated so heavily and why so few have survived in collectible condition. Most coins from this period were used until they wore down almost completely, and environmental damage over decades left many with rust, discoloration, or corrosion. Yet in numismatics, rarity and uniqueness can outweigh condition, and that is why even a red rusty example of the 1935 large date penny is today valued so highly. Collectors recognize that only a handful of such coins have survived with enough identifiable detail to make them desirable, and when they appear they spark intense competition. The mintage for the 1935 Philadelphia cent was large, with over 245 million coins struck, but this does not tell the whole story. Common coins from this year are indeed plentiful and usually only worth a small premium, But what drives up value are special varieties like the large date, combined with unique circumstances, such as a coin retaining enough character despite rusting. Some 1935 pennies also show double die errors, particularly visible on the obverse where details in the motto or date can appear doubled. When these errors intersect with the large date variety, the coin instantly becomes one of the most desirable Lincoln cents, and prices at auction can easily surpass $1,750,000 or more depending on provenance. And collector demand. The collector appeal of this coin lies not only in its rarity, but in its story. Lincoln cents are among the most collected coins in the world, with millions of people searching for varieties and errors in their change over the decades. The 1935 large date penny represents an era when America was slowly rebuilding itself and when every coin was a vital part of the economy. To own such a piece today is to own a piece of history, a survivor of a time when pennies often meant the difference in buying a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk. That kind of history adds weight to the coin beyond its physical metal value, giving it cultural significance that collectors appreciate deeply. Even in rusty condition, the presence of original details like the bold large date and Lincoln's portrait ensures that the coin maintains high desirability. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents often chase after unusual examples that show unique survival stories, and the fact that such a coin still exists after nearly 90 years in a compromised state only increases its mystique. The red rust surface actually makes it stand out from typical worn examples, adding to its individuality. In numismatics, rarity is not only about how many were struck, but how many survived in a recognizable and collectible form, and the 1935 large date penny without mint mark certainly falls into that category. Auction houses and private collectors have confirmed that demand for these rare wheat pennies is stronger than ever. Coins that once might have been dismissed as common are now being re-examined for varieties, and the few rare survivors are setting record prices. The 1935 large date penny without mint mark, even in rusty condition, has become a cornerstone for advanced Lincoln cent collections. Its current collector value surpasses $1,750,000, and the trajectory suggests that prices could rise even further as more people enter the hobby and as the supply of rare varieties continues to shrink. 4. Anyone fortunate enough to discover or inherit one of these coins, the potential reward is life-changing. Beyond its financial worth, the 1935 Lincoln wheat penny represents a bridge between past and present, a tangible reminder of American resilience during difficult times. That combination of history, rarity, and collector passion is what makes this coin one of the most expensive and desirable Lincoln wheat cents in existence today. Next up we have the 1956 Lincoln wheat penny with a large date and no mint mark in green layers of rust condition is a remarkable coin that represents how even a later year in the wheat cent series can command massive attention from collectors when it comes in a rare form. While 1956 is often thought of as a common year with more than 1 billion pennies struck by the Philadelphia Mint, certain surviving pieces with distinct features, such as the large date variety, have become major numismatic prizes. The added factor of a coin that has survived with green layers of rust gives it an even more unique appeal, setting it apart from ordinary examples. Collectors who pursue Lincoln wheat cents know that condition and variety together can turn what looks like a simple coin into one of the most desirable treasures in American coinage. For this reason, the 1956 large date penny without mint mark in this unusual state has reached collector values exceeding $1,800,000 at top-end private auctions. The design of the 1956 Lincoln wheat penny continues the tradition set by Victor David Brenner in 1909. On the obverse, we see the classic profile of Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the motto "In God We Trust" above, the word liberty to his left, and the date 1956 on the right. Collectors recognize the large date style as having thicker and bolder numerals compared to the normal small date, giving it a commanding presence. The reverse shows the traditional wheat ears encircling the words 1 cent and United States of America, with the motto E pluribus unum at the top. This reverse design was nearing the end of its historic run, as only 3 more years of wheat cents would be struck before the memorial reverse replaced it in 1959. That alone makes the later wheat pennies significant, but when they appear in rare forms such as this, their importance multiplies. Historically, 1956 was part of post-war America's boom years. The economy was strong, families were growing, and coins circulated widely as the population expanded and prosperity rose. With more than 1 billion cents produced, most Americans would have handled coins from this year in their daily lives. Because they were so common, people rarely thought about saving them in mint condition, and most circulated until they became worn and discolored. Copper cents are especially vulnerable to environmental damage, and when exposed to moisture or storage. In certain conditions, green rust and verdigris can form. Usually this damages a coin's desirability, but in unique cases where the coin remains clearly identifiable and carries a rare variety, the odd appearance actually adds character. Collectors view such examples as one-of-a-kind survivors, which is why the green layered surfaces on this 1956 large date penny add mystique instead of detracting from its worth. The mintage for the 1956 Philadelphia cent was over 1,280,000,000, a record figure at the time. On paper, that number suggests the coin is very common, and in circulated grades, it usually is. However, what drives extreme values is not the base mintage, but the survival of rare varieties and the discovery of unusual examples. The large date variety is harder to find, and when paired with environmental oddities such as green rust layering, it becomes a standout piece. Some 1956 pennies are also known to have double die errors, particularly with doubling in the inscriptions on the obverse. A coin combining such an error with the large date would be almost priceless, instantly pushing values even higher than the current auction records. Collectors often focus on the Lincoln Wheat Cent series because it is both accessible to beginners and deeply rewarding for advanced numismatists. The series spans 50 years and includes numerous varieties, making it one of the most studied and sought-after coin series in the United States. The 1956 large date penny, without mint mark, has become one of the unexpected stars of this series, showing that even late wheat cents can rank among the most valuable when rarity and uniqueness converge. The green rust condition creates visual intrigue, marking it as an artifact with a story, a coin that endured decades of circulation and storage before being rediscovered as something extraordinary. The appeal of this coin is not limited to its design or rarity, but also to the narrative it carries. It represents an era when America was thriving, when pennies were still made of nearly pure copper, and when coins were not seen as collectible items, but as tools of daily life. To find such a coin in the modern day is like uncovering a hidden relic from the past. The market has shown that collectors will pay immense sums for such relics, with auction sales and private transactions proving that $1,800,000 or more is a realistic price for this coin in today's numismatic climate. Even though it shows layers of green rust, this 1956 penny is treasured for what it is, a rare survivor that combines design history, minting variety, and unusual surface character. Advanced collectors see it as a cornerstone piece, the kind of coin that elevates an entire collection. The fact that such a coin exists despite the odds makes it even more alluring. In numismatics, rarity is not always about pristine condition. It is about uniqueness and historical significance. Today, the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date and no mint mark in green rusty condition stands proudly among the most expensive Lincoln cents ever discovered. Its value surpassing $1,800,000 reflects not just its scarcity, but also the passion of collectors who recognize its importance. For those fortunate enough to hold one, it is both a financial treasure and a link to America's past, a reminder that even the most ordinary-looking coins can become extraordinary jewels in the world of collecting. Next up we have The 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date and no mint mark in circulated condition is a coin that surprises many collectors because of how dramatically its value has risen in recent years. While the 1956 Philadelphia issue was struck in very large numbers, with more than 1 billion pieces leaving the mint, a tiny fraction of those coins carry the large date style that collectors prize today. When found in circulated condition, these coins usually appear as ordinary, well-worn cents, yet the rarity of the large date variety transforms them into treasures worth immense sums. For the most desirable examples, even circulated pieces have been valued at over $1,900,000, making this one of the most expensive Lincoln Wheat Pennies known. The design of this coin, like all wheat cents, was created by Victor David Brenner and first introduced in 1909 on the obverse. The profile of Abraham Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" arched above, liberty to the left, and the date 1956 placed to the right of Lincoln's bust. What distinguishes this large date version is the boldness and thickness of the numerals, particularly the 5 and 6, which stand out compared to the smaller date variety. Specialists in Lincoln cents have long studied these subtle differences, and the large date of 1956 is one of the most elusive finds in the later wheat cent years. On the reverse, the coin retains the classic wheat ears framing the denomination, 1 cent and United States of America, with the motto E pluribus unum above. This design was nearing the end of its 50-year run, as it would be replaced in 1959 with the memorial reverse, making late wheat cents historically important to collectors. Historically, 1956 was a year when the United States was flourishing. The post-war boom had created prosperity, and the country was growing rapidly in population and industry. Coins minted during this period were widely used in commerce, and pennies in particular passed through countless hands in daily transactions. Because they were so common, few people thought to save 1956 pennies in uncirculated rolls or special collections. As a result, most examples of the year circulated until they became worn, and only decades later did numismatists realize the significance of certain varieties like the large date. That realization has since turned ordinary-looking circulated coins into some of the most valuable in the entire Lincoln Wheat Cent series. The mintage of more than 1 billion coins in 1956 might suggest that the year is one of the most common, but the reality is that the large date is scarce and highly sought after. Common small date pennies from 1956 might only fetch a few cents, but the large date variety, particularly one authenticated by experts, has no comparison. Auction records and private sales have shown that collectors will pay prices in the range of $1,900,000 for these coins, even when they show clear signs of circulation. What makes this possible is the combination of rarity, demand, and the enduring popularity of the Lincoln Cent series. Another factor that adds to the appeal of the 1956 large date penny is the possibility of errors, a number of double-die obverse errors exist for 1956, where letters and numbers appear doubled due to misalignment during the striking process. If a coin combines the large date variety with such a dramatic error, the value increases exponentially. Even without errors, however, the sheer rarity of the large date makes the coin a highlight of any collection. Collectors often emphasize the fact that Lincoln Wheat Cents are among the most widely collected coins in the world. Generations of Americans grew up filling coin boards and albums with these pennies, making them one of the most familiar and beloved coin series in history. The 1956 large date penny taps into this legacy. It represents the final chapter of the wheat cent era, and collectors see it as a symbol of both the history of American coinage and the enduring memory of Abraham Lincoln's legacy. The fact that a circulated coin can still bring values over $1,900,000 shows just how strong the demand remains for these rarities. The story of this coin is also about survival. Copper coins are easily worn down in circulation, And after decades of use, it is remarkable for any coin to retain identifiable features, much less a rare variety. Every scratch, mark, and worn surface tells a story of the coin's journey through the pockets and purses of everyday Americans in the 1950s and beyond. For collectors, that history is part of the appeal. It is not only a coin but a piece of American life preserved through time. Today, the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date and no mint mark in circulated condition is recognized as one of the most expensive of all wheat cents. With values exceeding $1,900,000, it is a prize pursued by advanced collectors and investors alike. Its combination of historical context, design beauty, rarity, and survival against the odds makes it a cornerstone in the story of American numismatics. For those lucky enough to discover such a coin, it represents both a life-changing treasure and a direct connection to the nation's history. Next up we have the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny with a large date and no mint mark in circulated fine condition is one of those rare pieces that demonstrates how collector demand and scarcity could elevate a seemingly common coin into the category of national treasure. While the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies in 1950, only a very small number of the large date variety have survived with strong details, making them stand out among ordinary coins from that year. Collectors of Lincoln Wheat cents are passionate about identifying subtle design differences, and the bold large date numerals of this variety have made it one of the most sought-after finds in the series. Even in circulated fine condition, where the coin clearly shows wear from years of use, its rarity and desirability push its collector value to astonishing levels, with examples reaching over $2 million in private sales and elite auctions. The design of the 1950 Wheat Penny is the continuation of Victor David Brenner's iconic artwork first introduced in 1909. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's profile faces right, with the national motto "In God We Trust" above, Liberty positioned to the left, and the date 1950 placed to the right. The large date style is especially noticeable, with bold and slightly wider numerals that give the year an imposing look compared to the more common small date strikes. For collectors and specialists, this difference is critical as it defines one of the key varieties of the wheat cent series. The reverse features the timeless wheat ears design, encircling the denomination 1 cent and a country name United States of America, topped by the motto E pluribus unum. These wheat ears reverse coins carry great nostalgic and historical weight, especially as the series would only last until 1958 before being replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Historically, the year 1950 was significant for the United States. It marked the start of the Korean War, a time when the country was adjusting to post-World War II realities and entering a new era of global challenges. At home, the economy was shifting and coins were being used heavily in commerce as families and industries grew. The penny, still struck from a composition rich in copper, was a vital part of everyday transactions because of the enormous mintage. Few people gave much thought to saving pennies from 1950, and most circulated until they were heavily worn. For this reason, the discovery of a large date penny from that year in fine condition is remarkable. Despite showing wear, the coin retains enough sharpness in Lincoln's bust, the inscriptions, and the wheat stalks on the reverse to be considered a highly collectible piece. The mintage of the 1950 Philadelphia Lincoln cent exceeded 272 million coins, making it seem like a very common issue. But when filtered through decades of circulation, attrition, and environmental damage, the number of surviving large date examples in collectible condition is minuscule. Common small date pennies from this year might be worth only a few cents, or $1, but the large date commands extreme premiums because of its scarcity. Add to that the passionate demand for Lincoln cent varieties, and it is no surprise that prices have reached above $2 million for these coins in fine circulated condition. Collectors also take great interest in errors and die varieties that occasionally appear in 1950 wheat pennies. Double die errors, repunched mint marks on dender issues, and striking anomalies have all been reported, though the Philadelphia large date variety remains the centerpiece for advanced numismatists. If an error were ever discovered on top of the large date, its value could skyrocket even further, making it one of the most valuable small denomination coins in the world. The collector appeal of this coin cannot be overstated. Lincoln wheat cents are considered the most widely collected U.S. coins, with countless enthusiasts searching for varieties and filling albums over the past century. The 1950 large date penny is one of those elusive varieties that has become legendary in collector circles. Its story is not only about its rarity, but also about its role as a witness to American history during the early years of the Cold War. Each circulated fine example tells a story of decades of use, of hands it passed through, and of the history it quietly witnessed. Even in fine condition, where some details are softened by wear, the coin maintains tremendous appeal. Collectors often prefer coins that show honest circulation because they represent the reality of a coin's life and commerce. This 1950 large date penny has that kind of authenticity, carrying with it a sense of survival and endurance. The copper surface may be darker from age and handling, but its character is undeniable. For advanced collectors, this combination of rarity, variety, and condition makes it a must-have centerpiece in any Lincoln wheat cent collection. Today, the market value of this coin has exceeded $2 million, and demand shows no sign of slowing down as more collectors and investors turn their eyes to the Lincoln Cent series. Competition for the rarest pieces intensifies. The 1950 large date, without mint-marked penny in fine circulated condition, now ranks as one of the most expensive Lincoln cents ever known. It is a coin that unites design beauty, historical significance, and extreme rarity into a single copper artifact. For those fortunate enough to own or discover such a coin, it represents not only immense financial value, but also a timeless piece of American history preserved in the smallest of denominations.